Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about some crazy trade proposals that I've cooked up. I've been in the lab recently. We're about to enter the off season. We're already in the off season, but we're about to really get into the juicy part. So here's what I got down. I got 7 trades. None of them have Mikal Bridges in them. We know that just happened yesterday. Really big deal. And we will be discussing that later today. So be tuned for that video. Just some introduction. The league's processes are often shocking. I feel like Sabonis for Halliburton is the perfect example for this. There was a lot of ridicule on the side of the Kings giving up Halliburton, and there still is, quite frankly, because Halliburton has transformed into a transcendent talent. And Sabonis, although he's a good player, he's not on Halliburton's level. But I still feel like that trade was a win-win because the Kings got something they really needed, and they made the playoffs, which is something that they are not accustomed to. In this era, I feel like is the most difficult era to compete in, and because of that, teams feel exigency to compete and improve. The league is always improving. We know this to be true. Although this draft class is weak, the 2025 class looks incredible. Guys like Cooper Flag and Dabonsa and the Boozers, like these are incredible draft classes we have coming up, and the league is just looking to continue building up talent. The old guys aren't really leaving. Last season, the most notable retiree was you know, Udonis Haslam. So league's improving, so the teams feel the need to improve. That's why we get these deals. Every team, based on their offseason transactions, I feel like has a chance to make a playoff push. Now, you might be asking yourself, Lucas, do you really think the Pistons can make a playoff push? Let me tell you something. If the Pistons really get in the lab and just get to work and get a bunch of good players, like no one's really stopping them but themselves. They Although they finished extremely poor, they're not going to have a loss spree like last season. They fire their coach, they're going to get a better coach than Monty Williams. And in the East to get into the play-in tournament, you only need 36 wins. So let's say you're the 10 seed at 36 wins, then you just need to win 2 games and you're in the playoffs. So as fans, we should be prepared for anything to happen. Last night, I was just playing Xbox and I saw the Mikal Bridges trade. This was a great, I'll save my opinions on that for later, but I really like that trade as well. So, our first trade here, OKC and Utah. Now, this one I feel like is unlikely to happen, although I really hope it does because this is probably my favorite on the list. Here we have OKC getting Markkanen, who is on an expiring contract, so they will look to retain him. They're sending back a few salaries in Kenrich Williams, Ousmane Dieng, and Lindy Waters. But, the real bulk of the trade here is in the picks. 5 firsts, one of which is Utah's next season. So that would be a welcome addition. I really feel like because Utah is missing this pick, they won't be competitive next season. I feel like Sexton's on the move, a bunch of other players they could trade. They moved off Kelly Olynyk last season. So they got some sellable pieces, and I feel like Markkanen now is the time to sell high on him. He's, I believe, 27 years old. He'll be 28 shortly. So just a guy that, he's rounding that corner of age. He is a big body, so you never know. OKC, I feel like if you add Lauri Markkanen, you're a complete team. We're going to talk later about Oklahoma City's rebounding woes, and I feel like Markkanen addresses that as a 7-footer. And I also feel like his spot-up shooting ability is parallel to none relative to his size. Additionally, just looking at the picks that Utah is getting in return, they're getting the 12th pick, and I feel like that can really be an impact player in this year's draft. You could get, say, a Dalton Kennett, or you could get Devin Carter maybe, or maybe reach on a center because you have the ability to do that now. You've got all these picks like a Yves Mizzi or Kyle Filipowski maybe, or trade down. The sky's the limit for Utah. We know Danny Ainge likes his picks, so this is definitely a trade that I like to see happen. After that, Indiana and Washington. Now Indiana, I feel like they got a move. They got another move they can make. And this might be it. This very well might be it. Kyle Kuzma, we know who he is as a player. Not a first option, might not be a second option, but as a third option, this guy can play ball. And although he might not be the best defensive player, I feel like Indiana really doesn't care about defense all that much if you look at how they play the game. Here they're getting Jarris Walker, who was a lottery pick last season, didn't really play a lot. I feel like Washington can offer him that chance to play, and we can really see him develop into an all-defensive caliber player. Him alongside Bilal Coulibaly might be absolute locks next season. We'll see that. They're also getting the 36th pick in this year's draft, which will just be a bench piece, and then a 2029 first from Indiana. Two note here, they're getting Obi Toppin in a sign and trade. That is the only way this is going to work. Indiana needs to give up a salary, and Toppin, I feel like, is that expendable salary this season. If they do retain him, they will retain him, but Kuzma is a definite upgrade, and they're just getting rid of two guys. Shepherd, we know who he is, but they got, you know, Matherin's coming back. They got a good bench guy in Andrew Nemhard, TJ McConnell off the bench. I feel like Shepherd is not needed as much when you add a guy like Kuzma. And then after that, we got Darius Garland on the move. I got a Spurs video coming out later, and this is not, you know, Garland's not really talked about that much, but I feel like he could be the woe to a lot of issues in San Antonio. You know, coming off a really rough season, he broke his jaw and he missed a lot of time on some, just some injuries. It was a really bad season for him in terms of staying on the court relative to what he's shown us earlier in his career. I feel like Garland still has all-star potential, and we have seen him make the all-star game in the past, but he's not going to reach it with Cleveland. We know the fit with Mitchell is somewhat compromised. So I really like this trade here. They're sending him to the Cavs. The Cavs are sending him to the Spurs, and they're getting good pieces in return. Devontae Graham, that's an expiring contract. Doesn't really matter all that much, although he can play bench minutes, limited bench minutes. They will need to add another guard. Keldon Johnson, however, this is a guy, I just feel like his time in San Antonio has come to a close. He's kind of a big body. He can play small forward. He can shoot the ball. Although infrequent with his shooting, I feel like if he's surrounded by guys, he'll be a lot better. He can play a little defense. And then they're also getting 2 first-round picks from Atlanta, one in 25, one in 27. I just feel like this is a good package overall for Garland. And I think his fit next to Wembanyama is interesting. Garland is one of the best pass-first guards in the league, regardless of his last season. We've seen what he can do on the court. He can definitely set up an offense for success. And here we see, the Wembanyama pairing is honestly scary, and it's going to be difficult for other teams. This is a move, again, San Antonio, I feel like they might not have that same desire to win this season. But, hey, maybe we get to the deadline, things aren't working, and Cleveland still has, Garland. And let's say the Spurs are like 18-20. They're looking to make a playoff push. You never know what could happen. After that, we got Memphis and Utah. Now, one of the rumors from this offseason that's really surprised me is that Walker Kessler is reportedly on the trade block, and I found this to be really interesting. So I was trying to gauge his value here, and I found this trade to be really interesting. So Kessler going to the Grizzlies represents something that they don't really have, which is a dominant rebounder. We know Kessler can get the ball, really good at obtaining those, getting some putbacks. We know that that's a big deficiency for Jaren Jackson Jr. So putting him on the court is just another stopper. That also, the rim defense is going to be staggering. And we know Memphis is looking kind of scary next season. They got a lottery pick because we know what happened with John Morant. He had a rough season. He only played about 10 games. And he had the whole thing with the weapons, as well as he got injured and he missed the rest of the season. This trade is good for both sides. I feel like it's mutually benefiting. The Jazz are getting the 9th and the 39th pick here. So that's 2 players that could be playing in your rotation next season. 9th pick, a lot of steady options there. Maybe a Cody Williams type. On top of that, you're getting Marcus Smart. Now, I threw in Marcus Smart here. He's got 2 years on his deal. One of Danny Ainge's favorites, so he's obtaining him back here. Reason the pick is so high, although I feel like Kessler might not be worth a 9th pick, the Grizzlies are shedding $17 million off the books here, and that's not nothing. Having that flexibility, I feel like could definitely benefit them. And Smart, he was supposed to be there to mentor Ja. We never really saw them play together. We know the Grizzlies were one of the most banged up teams in the league last season. But from that, we learned they have some good pieces. They got G.G. Jackson. They got Vince Williams. So they got wings. They got Ja Morant, obviously, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson. This is a team that could be really interesting should they add a defensive stalwart like Walker Kessler. Now, after that, I've referred to this often as my magnum opus of trades, and let me tell you why. I really feel like this trade is beneficial to all teams involved, and there's very good reasons, Sacramento here making some upgrades. We know that Sacramento, we know who they are. They've pretty much been a high 40s win team for 2 seasons since adding Sabonis. And it's clear that they're probably not going to advance past that with this group they have. So they definitely need to make a change. I'm looking for a write-up I did on this trade. Here's what I got. So we just went over Sacramento. Portland, we know they're rebuilding. They're getting 2 picks here, or a pick and a swap, excuse me. And they're also getting Trey Lyles, Kevin Huerter, and Harrison Barnes. 3 guys, these are rotation pieces. And I don't think you can trade them because the aggregation rules in the NBA. But come the deadline, Barnes, 18 million. That's kind of not as much as it was 3 years ago. Same thing with Herter. This is a guy. His shooting was a little off last season, but get him on the floor, make him look good, and then send him off for value. Same thing with Lyles, 8 million expiring contract. That's also not nothing. The Bucks are the most interesting team here. So they're sacrificing Bobby Portis, which is going to be very, it's going to be detrimental to them. But I feel like the return is well worth it. The 2 things that Milwaukee needs most are point of attack defenders. Going all in for Dame, you had to have known that Dame can't play defense. He's a cone. We know this. He's getting blown by. This trade gives them 2 incredible point of attack defenders. We know Matisse Thybulle. Since the bubble, this guy has been an all defensive caliber player. Davion Mitchell, his nickname is Off Night. So these guys, especially when they're on the court at the same time, and these aren't 2 guys that are offensive zeros either. They can definitely give you some offense as well. This trade I feel like is really interesting for the Bucks. You can keep Dame on the floor, keep some of that offense, and surround him with good defenders. I feel like we might be in the market for a Brook Lopez trade at some point, and I feel like that moving Giannis to center and then playing some of these guys together will be really beneficial to them. But moving off Portis here, sending him to the Kings, now they're looking at a lineup. You got guys like Fox and, Fox. You got Malik Monk off the bench. You just re-signed him. You got Bobby Portis off the bench. So you got 2 of the best 6 men in the league. You're also starting guys like Sabonis. Now you're starting Jeremy Grant. Connaughton can fill in that shooting guard spot. He's not nothing either. Just feel like this is a steady trade all around. The cap value is not really doing anything. You're shaving 4.5 off Milwaukee. I definitely feel like every team in this deal has something to make this trade for. So if this were to happen, Jeremy Grant to the Kings is really interesting, as is Portis. So this is something that I definitely would like to see happen. Portland, you might argue, they might need more of a return for Grant. However, I feel like this isn't true. 4 years for him is a lot, considering he's making $30 million a year. If he's not already 30, he will be 30 very soon. I just feel like getting him off the books, and instead you're getting 2 2-year contracts and a 1-year contract. Getting that short-term, not hard capping, but limiting yourself for 2 years, but expanding your range past that will definitely serve this team well. Next, this is definitely a trade I've seen before. Orlando and Portland. Not sure if it's the same in its entirety, but here we got Orlando going all in for their guard, and that is Anthony Simons. We know Simons to be a premier guard in today's NBA. He's a guy you can put the ball on the floor. He'll get you buckets. He had a lot of 30-point games in limited time last season, but this guy's shown great potential in a bad team. He hasn't really played in incredible teams in his career, and I think this will give him the chance to finally do that. Here, the Magic are sending off Cole Anthony and Joe Ingles. Ingles has a team option. They'll have to accept that. Anthony just is another guard. Simons is going to provide a really interesting piece to this team's offense, which we know has been stagnant at times. He can hit threes better than a lot of guards in the league. They're also giving up 3 first-round picks for him, one of which is the 18th pick in this year's draft. I feel like that pick doesn't really have value in terms of, relative to other years' 18th picks. We've had some great players go after that, so I'm not saying that they might not get a player that can play, but 18 and then 2 first. Denver's next year is going to be in the 20s more than likely, and then their 2026 first. Simons, he's a great player. I don't know how much his pick value is. and then you're also getting two guys who can play, and it's in an offense. So again, another mutually benefiting one here. Simmons' defensive inabilities will definitely be shielded by Orlando's, you know, all around attack. They got Jonathan Isaac, guys like that, who will make Simons look like a good defensive player. Final trade we're talking today. This is the big one we've all been waiting for. Jimmy Butler. Tobias Harris over me? Yeah, they're going to pick Tobias Harris over you this time again because the rope is running thin, or whatever the saying is. Like, Jimmy Butler is on his way out, and we know this to be true. There's been some discourse with Pat Riley, and unless this is another big scheme, another big act in Jimmy's career, I feel like his time in Miami is definitely warranted. So I have him going to the Philadelphia 76ers, who we know they have a lot of cap space here. But I don't know if they're going to be able to do anything with that, and I feel like this trade is a way that they can address that. So this is a double sign-and trade, sending to Miami Paul Reed, Tobias Harris, and Buddy Hield. Hield and Harris both on new deals. They have to be on 3 or more year deals to sign and trade, and Miami is going to want those contracts under their books. We know that, we know who Tobias Harris is, and we know Buddy Hield is just a spot-up shooter. We know Paul Reed's a backup big. But these are guys that I feel like could really help Miami next season. Should you not have Butler, I feel like this is a team that can definitely still contend, but they're going to need some depth. They're losing guys like Haywood Highsmith and Caleb Martin. Both definitely could leave. Martin declined his player option, so he's more than likely going to leave. They're going to need to replenish that depth. Harris, we know who he is, but he's still going to give you 17 a night on some nights. So filling him in for Butler really isn't anything. And then Philadelphia, you're getting Butler back after the failed experiment, losing to the Kawhi buzzer beater in the Eastern Conference semifinals. This is just a win-now move overall, giving up 2 firsts, although only one of them is yours. Embiid's going to need more help if he wants to win a championship. We know who his team is. We know who the Sixers are. Change is needed for both teams here, so I think this trade is a way. It's a means to an end, if you will. So this is what we're looking at for our calendar. Everyone say hi to our favorite league commissioner, Adam Silver. NBA draft starts today, and then tomorrow is the second round. Free agency opens on June 30th. That is right around the corner, and we're going to be covering it all on here. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you subscribe. Keep watching the videos. We really appreciate all the support, and we will catch you next time.